InvestorIdeas.com Podcasts.
Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of InvestorIdeas.com Podcasts. In today's podcast, we're looking at a few public and private company announcements from AVCN Incorporated, trading on the TSX as AVCN and the OTCQX as AVCNF, as well looking at the Health Depot Pharmacy and Light Medical. Also looking at Cannabis Corporation, trading on the CSE as IMCC, and Global Track Solutions Incorporated, trading on the OTC as PSYC or PSYC. So first, looking at AVCN, a biopharmaceutical company focused on the development, manufacturing, and commercialization of plant-derived cannabinoid-based products, who announced that its Row Phyto product line of advanced medical cannabis products will be subject of a medical cannabis real-world evidence study led by Dr. Hans Clark of the University Health Network in Toronto. And the Row Phyto products were developed in accordance with the recent Health Canada Cannabis 2.0 regulations that allow for more advanced, high-quality medical cannabis product offerings. And these products have been tested for prolonged stability, enhanced absorption, controlled delivery, and other properties in collaboration with Dr. Christy Allen's research group at Leslie Dan Faculty in the Pharmacy of University of Toronto. Now, the Row Phyto medical cannabis product line is a full formulatory that includes sublingual sprays, oil drops, capsules, and topicals, oil various cannabinoid ratios, namely THC and CBD. And by offering a variety of delivery systems, the medical community has the possibility to select the appropriate Row Phyto product to suit the range of medical conditions such as pain relief, which may require either a fast onset of action or prolonged duration of effect over the course of treatment. And the products are manufactured under GMP partnership with MediPharm Labs to ensure that batch-to-batch consistency and high-quality products. Now, Dr. Justin Grant, AVCN's Executive Vice President and Scientific Affairs, commented that after 3 years of collaborating with world-class Toronto-based researchers and clinicians, including those at the University of Toronto and UHN, we're excited to offer the most consistent formulatory of advanced medical cannabis products to prescribers and principal investigators, including Dr. Clark, to further demonstrate the potential therapeutic efficacy of cannabinoids. AVCN's Row Phyto products will be exclusively available to patients through the Medical Cannabis by Shoppers online portal, in addition to UHN clinicians through the MCRWE study by the end of July 2020. And additionally, the AVCN and Medical Cannabis Shoppers are co-hosting a medical symposium in line with the launch of the Row Phyto product line entitled Medical Cannabis 2.0, Advancements in Cannabinoid Research, Product Offerings, and Patient Access. And the symposium will be held on a virtual platform on July 21st and will include Dr. Clark's presentation, Real-World Evidence in the Future of Medical Cannabis, Cannabinoid Medicine for Pain Management, that will provide further insights on the MCRWE study. And for registration, you can click the link attached in the article or go to avocana.com/symposium. So another company joining with the Medical Cannabis by Shoppers Real World Study. I talked yesterday the day before about how the Valence Group had also done the same thing. And I'm sure you're going to hear a few more announcements over the next coming months. There's a similar trend that we've seen in the past with any of the Shoppers programs, is that they tend to have few companies start up and then many more on board later. I think this is, again, more and more of a really positive thing for the Canadian medical market and for the medical market and for the cannabis industry as a whole. Again, this is still something that the medical community today really demands from this industry is more real-world data, more clinical evidence, more studies to be conducted. As again, there is a lot of inconsistency with cannabinoid-based medicine. The main issue there is that everyone has an endocannabinoid system and everyone's is unique. So I think at the end of the day, you're never going to quite hit this universality for the cannabis industry where one prescription for one person will also apply to another person. That just doesn't really seem to be where this industry is going to head and land on, especially with what we've learned sort of in the last couple of years with the research on microcannabinoids and the mass impact they can have on the overall efficacy as for medical conditions in very, very small and light doses. So the difference of certain terpene levels or certain microcannabinoids in one plant versus in another could have the difference of one being an effective treatment for pain relief on one person to one being not. And again, I think that that's hopefully what these studies will show, is that by better understanding the actual full plant profile of each of these products that they're going to be offering these medical patients, that they can start to better understand which type of people are maybe more receptive to which microcannabinoids and which terpenes. And I think that that'll be the most interesting data to come out, hopefully, from this study, and it'd definitely be worth paying attention to. And I would recommend, if you're interested in paying attention to what's going on in the medical community and what's going to be coming out with cannabis research through this medical cannabis by shoppers program, I would definitely check out that AVCN symposium. So again, avcana.com/symposium to sign up for that, and that will be on July 21st. Speaking of medical cannabis as well, the Health Depot Pharmacy and Light Medical just announced that their patient-centered online partnership, a venture that will help Canadians access medical cannabis and care prescriptions from the comfort and safety of their homes. Now, as Canadians adjust to the new reality and work to establish new daily routines, consistent access to healthcare and medication takes on even more importance, and virtual and direct-to-door prescription delivery are a necessity in meeting patients where they are. Now, according to the Canadian Radio, Television, and Telecommunication Commission, nationally, 86% of Canadian households have access to high-speed internet. And this online access presents healthcare practitioners and pharmacists with an opportunity to connect with the patients remotely and remove some of the barriers to continuing care, including wait times, transportation, and scheduling. Now, as registered pharmacists since 2011, I've witnessed the evolution of healthcare in Canada. The Health Depot Pharmacy's partnership with Light Medical will allow Ontarians to see a physician and access their prescribed medications in a timely fashion, said Andy Donald, the founder and CEO of the Health Depot Pharmacy. Our unique pharmacy services and approach allow necessary medications to be delivered promptly to those who rely on them, wherever and whenever they need them. Now, the Health Depot makes the pharmacy and healthcare shopping experience simple for all Ontarians, and the Healthca e-commerce store has thousands of health essentials available for online purchase and delivery, which can be shipped together with prescriptions for free. Our forward-thinking partnership with Health Depot Pharmacy creates unprecedented access to a seamless virtual care experience. Canadians need medical care and medications in ways to accommodate their life circumstances. Ali Mohammed, the CEO of Light Medical, says. Light's medical virtual platform allows patients to speak to a doctor from the comfort of their own home and obtain their prescribed medications and healthy product online through the Health Depot Pharmacy. Next day for free anywhere in Ontario with directed order delivery. Now, Light Medical's patient-friendly website makes connecting with a physician simple and easy, and Light's comprehensive services include primary care, specialist referrals, mental health support, chronic pain treatment, and acute care. And patients will no longer have to take a day off from work, make childcare arrangements, or wait in line for their prescriptions. And for those living in rural areas and vaccinations at the cottage, the Health Depot and Light Medical will bring healthcare Canadians at home, wherever they may be. So obviously only starting in Ontario now. And they're not the only company that's doing this. Really what you're seeing is just a slow transition to how medical care is being treated today. Not only in Canada, but around the world, more and more physicians are looking to virtual care platforms, at least when it comes to providing prescriptions, when it comes to maybe even first assessments, and also getting patients access to the at-home delivery. Now, that's something, again, that the Health Depot Pharmacy and Light Medical, it's good that they're doing this, but obviously there's a lot of other different programs that are out there right now, a lot of medical cannabis programs, especially when it comes to their medical ones. All are allowing some sort of virtual care practitioner and at-home delivery, at least for most parts of Canada. BC might be the only exception with the at-home delivery. But almost everywhere else, especially in Ontario, there is lots of access points, at least for medical cannabis now. It's good that there's full-on pharmacies doing this, not just for cannabis products, but for the entire gambit of pharmaceutical available. But I would definitely say that this is an overall trend that's being noticed right now, and definitely a transition in the medical industry that seems inevitable at this point, in that a big percentage of initial care, I think, is going to be moved to virtual platforms. I think a lot of people, especially as we've seen with this COVID pandemic, where you have the fear of lining up at hospitals, and many hospitals throughout Canada, as well as the US and other parts of the world, have seen a massive drop off of a lot of their basic care patients. So a lot of people suffering from heart conditions, a lot of people suffering from, let's say, repeat offender conditions that they would normally go into the hospital quite regularly. A lot of them have just stopped going during this whole COVID pandemic due to fear of getting COVID contamination, and a lot of them have allowed their conditions to get worse. And now a lot of these practitioners are starting to deal with the after effects of that. And I think that the general tone that you're going to see for the medical world moving forward, especially for pharmacies and especially for basic prescription meds, is to move to an online platform or some sort of quick delivery or in-store pickup option, as opposed to having people wait in line, especially even for just basic emergency care as well. There's lots of things that could be viewed through a phone or through a video that could get people the help they need much faster and avoid a lot of the bureaucracy and lines that most of the medical world and most of our hospitals that we go to are quite overburdened with. Next, looking at IMC Cannabis Corporation, who announced that its German subsidiary, Agipharm GmbH, has received a definitive purchase commitment of medical cannabis over the next 12 months from Zur Rose Pharma GmbH, an established distributor in Germany. And this is the company's fourth definitive purchase commitment with a distributor in Germany and advances IMC's strategy of creating a network of distribution partnerships to maximize penetration of IMC branded products. We've now signed our fourth sales agreement with a binding purchase commitment, and more importantly, we've added Zur Rose Pharma GmbH as a key partner, a well-established and reputable pharmaceutical service provider and wholesaler that bolsters our ability to provide quality medical cannabis products across the large and dynamic German market. And as we continue to add trusted partners to our MCO network, we firmly believe that we've created a strong foundation to become the preeminent brand in the international medical cannabis world, said Oren Schuster, the CEO of IMC. Now, through its EU GMP certification subsidiary, Agipharm, the company has entered into a 3-year sales agreement with the medical cannabis distributor, Zur Rose Pharma, and the distributor has entered into a purchase agreement under its sales agreement. And IMC has also previously announced that Focus Medical Herbs has signed 6 binding sales agreements for the distribution of IMC branded medical cannabis products in Israel. And total consolidated revenue from all binding sales agreements in Israel is expected to be $193.5 million, with an expected gross margin of 50%, and a total of 33,000 kilograms of medical cannabis will be delivered in Israel between the second quarter of 2020 and 2023, and 3,000 kilograms of medical cannabis under the sales agreement is expected to reach pharmacies in 2020. So IMC Cannabis, I've talked a lot about them before, obviously in the Israeli market, really starting to get their traction in Germany. And again, this is one of the things I've talked about for quite some time, but there's a lot of competition for that EU marketplace, a lot of competition for Germany right now. A lot of different producers in that area. Obviously, the main sort of competition right now is between South America, Israel, and Canada as far as large-scale producers in that space. All of them sort of boasting different attributes. Obviously, low price point is a big part of the equation, but also high quality, consistency, and also unique strains. I do think that, again, in general, Canada is probably not going to be the big winner when it comes to the EU marketplace. You're probably going to see the Latin American community as well as the Israeli cannabis producers start to be a much bigger competitor within that space. But again, something to pay attention to over the next year or so. I do think that IMC has set themselves up quite well in Germany, and it looks like they're going to at least be not the main competitor, but a main competitor within that market. Lastly, looking at Global Track Solutions, who announced the second monthly release and distribution of the July edition of its Microdose monthly newsletter, which features 3 articles that provide an overview of Kevin O'Leary's investment participation in MyMed, a review of Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop Lab on Netflix, and an exclusive one-on-one interview with Chi Psilocybin, a prominent voice in the psychedelic reform movement and owner of Truffles Therapy in Amsterdam. Now, the interview with Chi, titled A Servant of the Mushroom Kingdom, is an in-depth look at the personal journey and discovery of the benefits associated with a lifelong affinity for psychedelics and finding life's passion and purpose. And on a trip to Thailand, Chi met his future wife and co-founder of their company, Truffles Therapy, a psilocybin retreat that has become his life's work and hosted many hundreds of journeyers from all over the world. And Chi believes that everyone should have the opportunity to experience the magic of mushrooms. Now, David Flores, global CEO, said, I'd like to personally thank Chi for taking the time to share his unique and fascinating story with us and the voice he lends to the psychedelic reform movement taking place across the globe. Chi is playing a vital role in the industry's continued emergence into society's mainstream, which is showing great promise through clinical studies for treating debilitating mental health conditions, in addition to improving quality of life for millions across the globe. I believe that our subscribers are really going to enjoy this month's newsletter written by Mr. Kent Sly, Global's creative content director, and furthermore, I look forward to developing our network of industry leaders and advocates and exploring opportunities throughout the process to establish some of the strategic partnerships that will in time come to contribute to our emergence as an industry leader for the news and information. So the second Microdose Monthly has come out now. You can find this at psychedelicspotlight.com. A couple of things to sort of note about this, and the main reason I'm just keeping track of this company is because they are the main company focused on the psychedelic media right now, at least as far as public companies go. Again, there are a bunch of different resources out there for the psychedelic world. There's a huge community growing online. There's lots of different resources. There's lots of different pieces of information when it comes to microdosing, lots of different forums on psychedelics and on how to better experience them, as well as proper dosing, all those different things. And really, within this industry, it's quite difficult to really jump ahead of anyone when it comes to the news and distribution, especially surrounding the psychedelic industry. And one thing to really note about this company in particular with their psychedelic spotlight is that this article is almost impossible to find on any of your search engines if you're just looking up a lot of the key phrases. And that's something to really pay attention to here is which companies or which websites are actually showing to the top of Google search engines and where you're actually seeing the overall traction and online movement of this industry right now. Again, I don't really think that there's a lot of issues with their articles. They seem pretty well written. There's some good interviews with Chi. I would recommend that one of the Servant of the Mushroom Kingdom. Very interesting, though not very new as far as perspective goes, and a lot of information that's just repeat from a lot of other psychedelic resources and forums that have already been out there. Again, there's tons of documentaries on this topic right now, and there continues to be more and more. So for any company that's going to be trying to focus on education and information during this, and I'm not saying this just for the Global Track Solutions of the world, but really we saw the same thing with the cannabis industry. Was pre-legalization, there was just as much information about cannabis, but obviously a lot of misinformation and a lot of I would say data that is missing key components. Where as much as there was some information that was maybe true, there was also pieces missing for you to fully understand the reasons behind that. And obviously now the education and the research that's coming out in the cannabis industry has changed dramatically. And now a lot of those old sources are trying to play catch up with a lot of these newer sources. So it's definitely just going to be an interesting transition to watch of when the new educational sources will start to jump ahead of the old uneducated sources. Because a lot of, again, what you're seeing for the psychedelic industry right now is a lot of hearsay, a lot of personal experience, and a lot of just open forums where people are discussing this very casually. And obviously not getting too much into the genetic side, into the research side, into the chemical components on too micro of a level. And obviously, even the psychedelic spotlight still keeping things pretty average as far as the information they're providing. They're not trying to overwhelm anybody. And that will be a big, tough difficulty of this transition as well, is that not only for the companies like PSYC, who are trying to educate the average consumer, they're also trying to maintain some sort of interest with a lot of the people who are already within this community and already have interest in psychedelics. So it's a tough balance to try and convince new people that psychedelics aren't as dangerous as they maybe have perceived in the past, while also providing information for people who are maybe already within that space and looking to expand their knowledge. So I definitely recommend reading it and looking at it, also testing if it shows up on any of your search engines, because again, that's going to be a big asset or failure for any of these companies that are trying to provide information out there if they are not the first sources of this information, or if they're not even showing up on the first page for this information. So definitely something to look for. And that's all for today's podcast. Enjoy the rest of your day. That's all for today's podcast. Podcast is now a certified word trademark on the blockchain through Cognate Incorporated CM certification. InvestorIdeas.com podcasts are also available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and TuneIn. If you'd like to be a guest or sponsor of this podcast, please contact InvestorIdeas.com. Investor Ideas reminds all listeners to read our disclaimers and disclosures on the InvestorIdeas.com website, and this podcast is not an endorsement to buy products or services or securities. Investors are reminded that all investments involve risk and possible loss of investment. Investor Ideas does not condone the use of cannabis except where permissible by law. Our site does not possess, distribute, or sell cannabis products.